Hello, welcome to episode 18 of the Aim High and Achieve podcast, powered by VJ Shoes.no, the best grip on the planet. Okay, welcome to another episode of the Aim High and Achieve podcast. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Mark Hetherington. Mark, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm all right, bud. Thanks very much. It's good to be on. So,
have you recovered from your latest soiree in the ultra running world?
I don't know whether you'd call it recovered yet, but let's put it this way: there's been a few days of wobbling around the house, and we were across in the UK, back in London, and trying to walk around and see the sights. And yeah, you can tell who's run an ultra marathon out of the people doing that when you see them walking. Let's put it that way.
Sure. So just for a bit of context, and I really want to get into this shortly, but I want to learn a bit more about how your year has gone. But just for context, you recently, a week or two ago, ran the Dragon's Back, which is a 250-mile ultra across Wales.
Yeah, I suppose if we put it in kilometres, 380 it was down as, but managed to have 390. Wow. 6-day stage event from Conway Castle in the north of Wales to Cardiff Castle in the south. Yeah.
Wow. Just leading up to that, obviously we met in April 2024 at the Sandnes Ultra Trail race. I remember us talking before the race. Unfortunately, I don't remember us talking after the race because I was probably in some zombie-like state, which I was in for a few days after that. But you seemed pretty all right, so I figured you were a few levels up from me on that. But just start from your sort of season, if you like, of how 2024 started and how it's gone, and just lead us through and we'll build up to the Dragon's Back.
Do you know what? This year started in a way that I haven't done before, because normally I kickstart the year, or I've only been ultra running for a few years, let's put it that way. But I normally kickstart the year with KRS Ultra here in Kristiansand in April. But this year there was one of my friends and a couple of the guys I run with normally decided it'd be a good idea to jump across to Cornwall to do the Arc of Attrition, which has now actually been taken under the UTMB banner for next year. So we, in January, went across and tried to run this, what was meant to be a winter endurance ultra marathon, 100 miles around the tip of Cornwall. That actually turned out to be a fantastic summer's day almost for us here in Norway. Fantastic evening with full moon and everything, and ran through the night, and just over 24 hours, or just under 30 hours, managed to do that. So that was a kind of kickstart to the year, when normally everyone's either skiing here or recovering through the winter. Had a long run, let's put it that way, which was really good. But then a little break from there until KRS Ultra.
Is it a run you can run? Because those who are familiar with the Sandnes Ultra Trail, it gets a bit of stick wrongfully because there's not a lot of running involved, so to speak. But I mean, was it one of those ultras where it was almost a nice ultra, if you know what I mean, and you're not sort of through the bush?
Yeah, I mean, you've got a lot of up and down, but okay. It being along the coastline there, the up and down is only as high as the cliff is. But anywhere there you could go down towards the sea level and then back up to the top of the cliff, they took you that way, in and out of all the coves and everything like that. So it's quite a technical run, but there's a fair amount that you still can run, yeah.
And that was pre-Sandnes Ultra Trail then? That was in our spring, was it? Or our winter?
In January, yeah.
In January, okay. Yeah, cool. And then you had the Sandnes one after that then?
Yeah, so I did KRS. I did that with a friend, someone who'd never run an ultra before. So we took that a little bit more, I wouldn't say slower, but certainly more at a pace of someone who hasn't raced ultra. A fit guy, but had only run sort of half marathon before. And then a week later came and saw you for the first time at Sandnes. Yeah.
And what was it that got you into the ultra world?
Do you know what? I knew I'd never be fast. I've always kind of liked to to run or to jog or to be active or whatever. But when you get to a certain age, I mean, this whole thing right now is kind of, my last hurrah before I turn 40. So you get to a certain age and you think, okay, well, I want to carry on doing things. I want to, be active, but I'm not going to be fast. So how can I push my body in a different way? So I started with, in COVID year, running KRS on my own, and absolutely dying a death. I remember the feeling of your muscles being eaten up by the lack of nutrition, and because you're not getting any more in, and you're learning so many lessons like that. To then the next year running my first 100 miles here in Norway, and just kind of moving on from there. Thinking, how can I press my body a little bit more? So it's taken a journey along the way.
The kind of thing I like about it, which you might resonate with you, is that you can only do 2 or 3 races a year, let's say, or you could perhaps do more. But I like the fact that I sort of have a race 200 or 300 days away, that I'm on that journey to run that race, and that from like a mental health point of view, having something that's 200 days away just keeps you focused every day to keep working for that goal. And it doesn't have to be an ultra race. It could be, scuba dive. It could be anything, any sort of goal you want to set yourself. But that's the thing I really like. And then you kind of throw the ultra thing into it, which is like, it's a complete test of like mental, physical stoicism. It's just got everything for those 1 or 2 days that you're going to do. And I think it's such a healthy mindset to have those booked in. Do you kind of feel the same way?
Yeah, I definitely do. I mean, I've had this conversation with both my wife and and sort of saying, well, why do you need to do these races? And I don't necessarily think it's a race, but it's something that you can put there and you can aim towards. It's like, I see you on your Strava now with, T minus 200 or 300 or whatever days, to Sundance next year. And it's having that you are working towards, because so much of the training or the preparation is mental. You got to put yourself in the mindset that, okay, I want to achieve this. And for me, I think that's, a huge part. It's not about getting on the podium. It's not about, being, in the top, whatever. It's about, breaking my own barriers down and seeing what I'm capable of. And I think with regards to that, if you can actually put a date in the diary and say, on this date, I'm going to do that, whether it's, I know people who've done the DNT massive route here in Norway, but at least they put it in the diary themselves and said, I'm going to do it. I like the fact that you can go to a race and it's organized for you and everything's, to say here, tilrettelagt, but made, put out on a plate. And you kind of get that feeling that if it's done like that, then you've got an obligation as well to get through it, because you've invested both over time, but you've invested financially. There's lots of things where the investment comes in and you're aiming towards, a bigger goal. And I think certainly when it comes to Dragon's Back, that was a huge thing for me on many of those levels. Yeah.
Yeah, because I actually signed up for the preliminary ticket sale for Dragon's Back or something, and it's quite an expensive investment. And I looked into it, and I can see why it's expensive. Is because it's got a roaming night camp to take the night. So the money probably wouldn't be an issue for me to do it, and that's why I wanted to talk to you about it, just to get your feedback on it, because I've not heard anything bad about it. Everything I've heard has been really positive about it, and from the YouTube video. So it's something I was really thinking about. It just, with it being in that time in summer, I'm not exactly sure how my holidays will fall, and whether it's something I can get to. I'd love to get to. The other one is the Marathon des Sables, which is similar, a bit more expensive, but it's a similar kind of deal. So it's definitely something on my radar to look at. But how did you first of all then? How did you come across the Dragon's Back, and was it something you've always wanted to do?
I wouldn't say it's something that I've always wanted to do, but it came onto my bucket list pretty quickly. Last year, so 2023, I ran the Northern Traverse, which is another event by Oreo Events. So Shane Awley runs an event company or a race company called Oreo Events. And Northern Traverse is one, and that goes from the west coast to the east coast of England. So I'm doing Wainwright's route across the UK. So starting in the Lake District and going across the moors and to get across to the Yorkshire Dales across on the other side. And that was amazing, and that's a non-stop event. Not as expensive. Still a lot of investment needed, but I did that in 59 hours and kind of, broke my own mental barrier, as it were, because I slept 90 minutes during the whole thing, but, managed to get through it all. And I realized there, okay, now I've done a long non-stopper. And I have a friend, Thomas Aduru, down here in Kristiansand, who's run the Cape Wrath Ultra, which is an 8-day stage race that Oreo Events do as well, up in Scotland, from Fort William right up to Cape Wrath on the top peak there. And he spoke very highly of the event organisation and everything. And I thought, well, okay, they've got the Dragon's Back as well. And that really appealed to me because, it's in the mountains, it's hard, it's gnarly. So I began looking at it, and then suddenly they had a campaign where they were saying, if not now, then when? And they kept dropping into my feed, and I was thinking, all right, it's expensive. And then suddenly a friend dropped a message that said, have you heard of the Dragon's Back? I was just like, oh, come on. Okay, if we could do it together, that'd be amazing. So it kind of all just materialized out of that. But yeah. As I say, it went from being on the bucket list to then just growing and growing on me. And as you said yourself, you see the videos, you see how amazing it looks, how scary it looks. Think about pressing yourself through that, and it's just that builds and builds and builds over time.
One interesting thing I always like to talk with people like yourself about is obviously you're working a 9 to 5, like most people are, like I do. What kind of advice would you give to people who sort of, I don't want to say they make an excuse not to sort of achieve things and find time for training, but how do you kind of balance work and training for an ultra? And is it easy for you, or do you struggle with it, or is it just something that comes natural?
I think I want to say that balancing is always difficult, whether it's work and family and, training and all these kind of things. But there's always time. I think you can make that time. I know I need to be better at how I prioritize and place the timings. So do I need to go for a run all the time at, 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening, or 7, or a miss bedtime for the kids or whatever? No, I could probably get up at 4 and do it. And there's a lot of people who do that. And so it's about how you place those in your day. There's a lot of hours that we probably spend sat on our asses doing, stuff that we don't really need to do, me included. In fact, if you ask the people who know me best, they'd probably say definitely you. But it's just that case of, how do we, if we want to achieve something, how are we going to get there? What effort are we going to put in? I've got work, I've got, travel with work, but then maybe when you think, okay, I'm going to travel, then how can I utilize that time away? Then I've got more free time maybe than I would have at home. So, yeah.
I listened to a podcast and something really hit me, and that's so simple that if you work for 7.5 hours in a day and you sleep for 7.5 hours at a night, you've still got 7.5 hours left, or ish, for training. So when you kind of put it like that, in terms of if you split your day into 3 sections, and it's something I've started to try and do. I've started to separate my sleep, work, and then I've still got a lot of hours left where I can be utilising it, and like you say, not sat on your ass. And it's just a case of I think motivation I've thrown out of the window, because most times I'm not motivated to go running, especially in Norway on this west coast with the weather. It's not been too bad in the summer, but when it gets to winter, you are not motivated to go running in that. But that's when you got to have discipline, and you've got to say, I've got this race booked in 206 days. I have got no choice, because before I know it, it'll be 100 days, then it'll be 80 days, and I'll be thinking, shit, now I'm at 50 days. And if you don't get the discipline early and give yourself, everybody on planet Earth can find 1 hour in a day, I think. I don't think I'm being too cruel when I say everybody can find 1 hour to do something, and if that 1 hour is, going fishing, or it's cycling, or it's doing a 10K run, or it's whatever, you've just got 1 hour. I think we'd be a lot better off. But in this day and age, there's so many distractions. You just have to, on your phone, tablet, TV, everything is sort of like geared up to just get your attention and distract you and sell adverts at you. And I think the first thing is you just wipe that away and almost go a bit Neanderthal and just go back to being a bit like that. And, and that's kind of, I've tried. My wife will tell you I'm the worst for blooming TikTok or whatever. And I get myself trapped in it, and I've got to, after 10 minutes, excuse me, after 10 minutes, I was like, Steve, what are you doing? Phone down, sort your life out, Yeah.
I mean, I think one of the main things, and someone once said to me that there's never a bad training, a bad, exercise routine or whatever that you can do, but also the best one that you do is the one that you do. So, there's often a time of, getting out the door and, and it's, as you say, it's -5 or something out in the winter, and you just think, oh, can I really be bothered to go out there and, put a round in? But you come back totally revitalized from that. But there's also the thing that, sometimes you just think, well, I've got half an hour, or, I've dropped the kids off at football, I've got 40 minutes. Can I, go around the neighborhood? And, if that's all you've got time for and that's what you get done, then actually it's something towards your end goal. I was listening to someone as well recently just saying that because they've had some problems with their Achilles, so they were advised to go out more often. And so in the morning he was going out, and it was literally a 4 kilometer round trip. But it was literally where you're greeting the cows and everything, because you don't want to be going all out, but it's just getting out and doing it. And if that's something that's bringing you towards your goal and making it achievable, then fantastic. So yeah.
Yeah, I think specifically with ultra running as well, it's about just building those kilometers, and at the end of the week having your kind of, I mean, I don't know what your sort of weekly kilometers are, but I know any sort of ultra runner doing the kind of races you're doing, like Ram, for example, on the last podcast, he's doing over 150 kilometers a week every week, which to me is a bit next level. I'm kind of getting to 50, and I'm easily getting to 50, but then 70, I can get 70, but it's then pushing on from that 70 upwards. I've found that's where it gets a bit next level for me. I don't know if you're the same. You're probably a bit more.
I think I'm not actually. I'm probably sort of 50 to 70 on a regular week. I know I probably should do more, but what am I getting from that? And what's the goal, and how am I getting there? If I can do it with sort of 50 to 70, then that's fine. If I'm coming off the back of a long race like this with being injured because I didn't get the miles in before, then probably I need to think, okay, if you want to achieve it again, then you need to put more effort in, and to actually make sure that the structure of your body can withhold the actual pressure you're going to put it under. So yeah, I suppose when I'm now wobbling around with swollen Achilles, wondering what the heck I've done to myself, then yeah, probably I should have had a few more sort of 20, 30 kilometers more a week for the last month or two before the race, just to build it up a bit more. But that's retrospect. You can't do anything about that.
I think you make a good point there, because I think ultra runners tend to be, or successful people who enjoy it, they tend to be sort of 40-ish plus, coming into the 40s. And I think this is a big thing, I think, with mentality of how to handle, because if you're running 50, 70k a week, for me, that's a lot. And it's probably enough for me and where I'm ever going to be honest. But the mental side of it, I know going into an ultra race, I'm more relying on my mental side than I am my physical side. And like you say, if you have a swollen Achilles, or I just have problems with my hamstrings from rugby injuries. So my hamstrings are a nightmare. So, and also I get bad IT band. I got bad IT band at Sandnes. Hell, Jesus Christ, that was like hell on earth for a good few hours. But I think it's like it suits sort of like the older generations just because it's so mentally challenging. And you can't really see a sort of 20-year-old, I might be wrong, sort of going into a 100-mile race and being able to handle what that throws at you.
I think it's certainly a key thing to have that, mental nous, to know what you're actually going into, that it's not necessarily a physical test, but it's, a mixture of physical, mental, emotional, nutritional, intellectual, there's so many things that go around there. And I think, but the key is just, being able to say, I can do this, I can get through this. The guy, one of the guys I ran with across in Wales, Glenn, we had a little bit of a disagreement on, the statement, could anyone do this? And I think, when it comes down to it, as long as you put in the training and you've got the right mental sort of attitude towards it, and I think anyone can do it. It doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, what your sort of your goals are there, because they're also individual. As long as you know what you want to get out of it, then most people can achieve it.
Yeah, it kind of goes back. I think I said it before. If you can run 5k, you can run 10k. And if you can run 10k, you can run 20k. And if you can run 20k, you can run 40k. And it's kind of like, that's kind of how I see it. If it's people will just say, I can't, 5k, there's no chance. But you can easily do it. It's 85% in your head that you can't do something like that. But I don't belittle it. The kind of things you've done this season, it takes some preparation, that's for sure, and it takes some serious, almost semi-professional level of training. And I kind of saw that in the Sandnes race that I did, and I did some runs, and I did a marathon before, and I was running, a bit in the trails. And the lesson I learned from my training last season in terms of ultra running was I let myself, how can I explain it? I let myself off the hook too often in my training. So I would go up, I live in sort of a bit of a mountainous part of West Coast. I would kind of let myself off the hook. I'd run, I'd get to 12, 14k, and I'd be like, oof, yeah, I've done enough now. Drop back down, come home. Really, I'd not even done, I should have been doing 30k up there, for 5 hours, 6 hours, then coming back saying, okay, I've done my one long run a week. But I was kind of thinking, a couple of hours up in the hills would be enough preparation, but it isn't. Not on these sort of big 50-mile, 100-mile races. You've got to be doing your baseline 50k plus a 30k a week. I think that's kind of the way I'm approaching this one this time, especially coming into winter now. At least a half marathon a week up in the trails, if not more, really. So that was my lesson out of my sort of preparation last time.
That's certainly wise. I think you'll reap the benefits of that. When you come to April next year, definitely.
Yeah. But let's go on to the Dragon's Back, mate, because I'm really interested in this. So just correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm going off what I've read here. So it's a 6-day race now. They extended it to one extra day. 380 kilometers over 6 days. So you're kind of doing 60k, 70k a day.
Yeah, you start from start on 52 on the first day, and the longest day is 73, I think.
Yeah. And first of all, how did your preparation go? How did you feel going into it? Were you feeling fully prepared, or?
I felt fairly prepared. I'd like to say I was better prepared. I got some really good advice in terms of training and preparation and things like that. And one of them was to be specific. And I've said this guy that I speak highly of down here, Thomas. I don't know. He was also training for Tour de Jean, which went off last week or the week before down in from Courmayeur. That's 330 kilometers with 25,000 meters of elevation over. And he wanted to do that in about 100 hours. And so a lot of his training, because I was thinking, you're not out training a lot. And he was like, no, well, a lot of what I do is an hour on the treadmill at 20% elevation. So I was listening to him and David Roach, on his podcast, Some Work All Play, was talking a lot about, sort of the elevated treadmill. So I thought, I'll try and do this. And so thought that I'd get more of that going, but really didn't enjoy it. It's really boring when you're going, an hour on a treadmill at 20%. So did that maybe once a week for a while. Not enough. And also, when I was out running, I had the fantastic experience of spraining my ankle about 3 months before. So trying to protect that from the technical trails and everything, and to make sure that I was still able to go and run. So I think I went in strong, but maybe not specifically strong for what was going to meet me, because it is so much up and down and so technical, and a lot of just banking on the quads the whole time when you're running down 1,000 meters of elevation or whatever it is. We don't have that type of thing to train here in southern Norway, so you have to find a hill up and down it as many times as you can, and it's not exactly enjoyable training, but it's necessary training. So yeah, I prepared as best as I could, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I suppose that's a good point, actually, on the treadmill. I've heard that before, and especially on the hill climber, just to basically fatigue your quads, let them recover, fatigue your quads, let them recover. So I'm one of these, I don't know there must be a term for these people who join a gym, go 80 times in the first 2 months and then just never go again, and then have to try and find a way to stop the membership. But this time I've joined a gym just specifically for Sandnes and for the winter, because I want to go in there and I want to destroy my quads and then let them recover, destroy my quads, and just see if that fatiguing the muscle and then letting it recover will help on that. But so the first day of the Dragon's Back, I'm guessing, and you'll tell me now, the first day I'm guessing you've got the adrenaline and everything's probably going well, and then you do one ultra on the first day, and then you think, shit, I've got another 5 ultras to go here. So I'm guessing the race doesn't really start until the second or last day. But on day 2, how are you feeling going into that one?
I think a bit of context on my race, or my event, as it were, because I stopped calling it a race pretty early, because, especially on day 1, because we started and it had a torrential downpour on the morning of day 1, going up and over the first tops there. But then it started to clear up and it was nice, and everything was fairly wet. But we were coming down towards this first checkpoint, and you could start to see the heavens opening, or the clouds opening. You saw Trifan, which is the mountain that you're effectively going to go up about 1,000 meters, and the scrambling at the top of it to get up and over. And that was new for me, sort of having that steeper climb, and having to put your poles away and climb, using your hands and to actually get up and over. So when I went over there, I felt a sense of relief. and had a moment of weakness talking about how I didn't trust Salomon grip anymore. And as I said that, I went over on my ankle. And I thought, oh, crap, day one, going over, quite painful, so I had to totally reset all of my expectations. Instead of thinking I was going to get in early and along with, the other people I was traveling with, it was a case of getting through that day before the cutoffs. So that was my longest day. I mean, again, it's not all running on that day either, especially from the midway point. You are then, you climb Snowdon. You've got people going up Snowdon, and for the day, and they're asking you, "Have you travelled long?" I said, "Actually, this is 40 kilometres into our day. We started in Conway. We're down here. We've been over Crib Goch, which is a huge ridge that you climb up, and we were in the mist and rain going up through that. Sort of climbing physically, and then trying to go across the top without fearing, that effectively it is right down, on both sides. Then you're up over Snowdon and down the other side, and I was coming into camp after about 13 hours down the steepest hill that I've ever had to kind of go down, that because I was so far back, maybe 250 people back that it was just a mud bath. So you're sliding down there, you're landing your hands on thistles and trying to take them all out your hands and thinking, why am I doing this? So back to your question about, sort of starting day two, I was thinking, well, I'm just glad to have got through day one, to be honest. And then I had to tape up my ankle, to think about how I was going to get through day two. And it started well. And things just got better throughout the week for me, to be quite honest. So it was, day one was a case of getting through. I knew that it was going to be the toughest day for me because it was so much new. But it was also really exhilarating to do that. And I think you kind of forget that you've been through challenges when you come through them and you think, well, I've got more challenges to come. I've done this. I can get on and do the next thing. So, yeah.
Like, it's kind of like type 2 fun, isn't it? What they call it. It's like, it doesn't seem fun at the time. I mean, yeah, after the Sandnes race that I did, I sent messages to people saying, do not ever let me sign up for anything like this again. And then 2 days later, I signed up for the 100 mile. And people saying, are you mad? And I'm like, no, but I really enjoyed the last race. They were like, hang on a minute, do you not remember sending me this? And I'm like, I remember sending it, but I don't remember it that way. Like, it's amazing how the mind kind of like almost plays tricks with you. I think that's something to do with the not the adrenaline, but the dopamine of finishing into the brain. I think that there's some chemical element of this, that when you finish that and you've got through it, I think the brain is signaling that this is such a great feeling that it takes the things that were bad about it and it sort of like it takes it out of your memory because it doesn't want you. I think it's such a clever thing that the chemical that happens. I mean, I might be totally wrong here, but that's kind of how I see it. I think that's what happens. So obviously your first day was sort of like everything after that was a bonus.
It certainly was, and I think you probably ask any ultra runner of that feeling. Most people will say on the finish line, never again. And then how often have they spent another 1,000, 2,000 krona signing up for the next race within the time they've got home? We all do it, and it just kind of shows how stupid we are. Maybe, I don't know, or actually what an achievement it is to have got that far. So
yeah, I mean, I think I've really enjoyed being on this subject of ultra running and speaking with different people and why they do it and sort of the benefits. And it's not for everyone. I totally get that. It's not for everyone at all. But a 100-mile race for an ultra runner is a 5K for somebody else. Who just wants to get into it. And you never know, they might end up on the same journey or, they might take something else out of it. So, it's a really interesting kind of subject. And it's a booming industry at the minute as well. 10 years ago, ultra running was very niche. It was not in the mainstream at all. And now it's almost, it's everywhere. You can't, it's on every feed. It's, influencing people all over the place are into it now. It's quite unbelievable. But how did you go on your fueling strategy then? Is that something you sort of really take seriously, or are you pretty loose about it?
Yeah. I mean, so to explain a little bit about how the Dragon's Back works as well, you're in camp every day, and when you're in camp, you have the possibility to eat breakfast there, and then when you get into camp in the evening, you have dinner, and for us meat eaters out there, it's a week in hell because everything's vegan. So you're trying to get as much nutrition into your body in the morning, but when you're out on the hill, on the in the mountains there, you have only what you've taken with you at the start and what you put in your drop bag, which is about halfway through. To feed off the whole day. There is no food or drink, or there's only water available at the water station and the drop point. So everything else is sorry, dog telling us the neighbours are coming. So there's literally only that you have. The other thing to keep in consideration there is that your food for the whole week has to be packed into your camp bag, which has a maximum limit of 15 kilos. So when you're thinking you have to have, any running clothes, you have to have your blow-up mattress, your sleeping bag, your plates, your, camp clothes, running clothes, any extra shoes, maybe extra poles, and then nutrition. Let's try squeezing that into a 59-litre bag that is maximum 15 kilos. It's hard work. So I worked hard on that, and I'm a Tailwind ambassador, so I love what Tailwind does for my nutrition. I think it's easy to drink. I think it tastes pretty good, especially the watermelon one that they come out with recently. But then I also thought, how am I going to get the extra carbs, whether it be eating real food or not, and so I actually went for precision fuel and hydration gels because they're quite intense on the you've got 30 grams of carbs in a small gel, or you've got the other ones that are 90 grams in a one that you can put the lid back on. So had a fair amount of that, got pretty fed up with all of it over 6 days, but it worked pretty well. I didn't get too sort of hungry or too low on energy, so that was good. The other thing I have to say as well is on day 3, you run through a town in the middle of Wales that must be famous on the whole Dragon's Back, because just before the checkpoint, you run past a co-op. And I think they must restock on everything that an ultra runner would want to buy at a co-op, because I was in there and took 3 bottles of Coke and 2 Red Bulls and sausage rolls and things like that, and God help the people that came later on that were trying to get the same things, because they must have been gone.
But that's I've actually I've been trialing Trailwind, so I've actually bought a couple of packs of it, and I really quite like it. I tried precision fuel and hydration. Yeah, it's a bit same for me in terms of like the ones you get from XXL and the sport one, and I think the Tailwind is a bit different. I've not tasted anything like it. It doesn't like sit in your stomach like I've found a lot of other gels and sports drinks, and I'm not affiliated with any of them. But the Tailwind for sure has got something extra that I've not found anywhere else yet, and I don't know what it is. It must just be the design of the product. So
I think I like the fact of mixing up the flavors a little bit as well, because you don't get so fed up of it if you've got some lemon, some orange, some whatever. It gets a little bit more. Okay, what are we drinking now? Which side are we going to?
Yeah. And I kind of decided my tactic is I'm not going to rely on gels. The last race, I was relying on gels basically, like 1 gel an hour and da. I'm going to throw that out of the window because I don't think it's good for your gut. I think I'm going to carry a couple as like an emergency if I'm going under and I'm just like in a K-hole and I need something quick. I'm going to carry them for that moment. But I think other than that, I'm going to sort of try and rely on potatoes, chocolate, just things that are a bit more softer on the stomach and a bit more natural food stuffs, if you like, and try and have as little manufactured sugar until I'm in desperate need of it, if you kind of get me. That's kind of how I've felt when I've been trialing it. The gels,
I think it's so individual with these things as well. And, you know, a lot of people say, you know, drink this much an hour or whatever. You know, I like to say, you know, drink to thirst. You know, make sure that you're keeping yourself hydrated. Make sure that, you know, if you realise that, you know, you get to wipe your head and you see, you know, a load of white stuff on there. Okay, well, I'm sweating too much. I've lost my salt. You know, take a salt tablet or two. You know, if you realise that you're starting to lose a bit of momentum or whatever, then yeah, if it's a gel or if it's a chocolate bar or if it's a Real Tour Mate, you know, or you know, Eldorado melon bar, or you know, whatever it is, you know, say different things work for different people. I mean, I tried different things, you know, on dragons as well that just took an absolute age to digest, and it was just like, well, I've got 6 more of them, but I can't eat them, so they didn't come with me the days after. Penny sweets or smorgot. Fantastic, you know. If you can go around with a bunch of Haribo Fantastics and still pretend to be sporty, then you know, why not? You know, it's the best thing I find as well.
Yeah, 100%. I think you've got to try these things on your training runs and just get used to them, see what sits well with you. And one mistake I made in Sandnes, I've talked about it before, is I overhydrated. So I had this in my head, like you've just said there, drinking I've got to drink a litre every hour. And I was getting into this sort of stress moment where I was almost stressing about that I've not drank enough. And in the end, I ended up overhydrating, legs swelled up, and it was a bloody worse situation than being dehydrated in the end. And it took me a while to sort that out. I mean, it's a bit graphic because I was drinking Vimto and literally leaking Vimto out almost directly, if without being too graphic. That's how overhydrated I was. And because you're sort of in a state of delirium, I didn't really realise what was happening. And I was like, Jesus, I must just be like 100% water here in my body. So it took a few hours just to get myself back on track after that. But it's a lesson learned, and but it's a good lesson for those people who are sort of getting into the ultra world. It's like, don't stress about this too much, you know, go off your own feel. That's a really good point. And test things in training runs. That's why the long runs in training are so important, because then you're testing the systems out.
Definitely. Totally agree with you. Totally agree.
Yeah. So the last day then, you're coming into the finish. What's your sort of feelings when you're coming over the line? Are you ready for another day, or have you had enough at that point?
By that point, I've had enough. And day 6 was my toughest day by a long way. I mean, I went through, you know, sort of the pain on day 1, you know, and things like that, and then I built up a lot over the other days. And I actually got stronger with certain things throughout the week. But then we were 3 Norwegians in our tent, and all towards the last time we're just feeling that it was, you know, our legs and especially Achilles had taken a battering without, you know, merit. So when you come to day 6 and it's 60k and 1,300 meters of elevation, you kind of think this is a walk in the park. And I mean, literally half of it's, you know, or the last 15 kilometers is through parks in Cardiff. But it was hell, because you're on cycle paths and, you know, tarmac and, you know, down hills, you know, sort of steep hills, trying to, you know, keep it together. It was. I remember going down towards the support point on the final day with tears in my eyes, and because it was so painful. And there was a woman who came towards me, and so she said, "Oh, it's just 200 meters down here and through this that farmer's area, and you'll get to the support point." And I looked at my watch, and it said that the next turn was in 700 meters. And it was just that moment I just thought, you've lied to me. And, but I can't do anything about it. I still have to get through it. And it was about 700 meters, and it was the most painful 700 meters. And I got in there, grabbed my support bag and my drop bag, put my head between my hands, and, the tears were just rolling. But there was a guy who was there to help me, and he just understood, because all of the volunteers are ultra runners. They're there gathering credits to be able to do it free or for a reduced price in the years to come. So they understand exactly what you're going through. So, to be able to have that 2 minutes to sit there with my head in my hands before I asked for help to get, fill up with water. And then he gave me everything I needed, and, gave me a pat on the back and an emotional boost to move on. It was like that kind of the whole way through that final day, because you were just being cheered on by different people at different times, who knew what you were doing. It's like the whole of Wales knew why you were there and what you'd been through and what you were coming to achieve. That kind of culminated in the last turn, out of the park in down at the Taff River, sort of coming towards the castle. You turn into the castle there, and the PA's blasting, and it's now Mark Hetherington, and the music, and there's people clapping, and you're just like, don't cry, get across that line. Amazing. I mean, so many emotional feelings, and I kind of said to myself, I want to find what the takeaways are from it, but I haven't really got there yet, because I think it's still computing what they mean and what it is. But it's certainly way more than I could have imagined a 6-day ultra being. I think. Yeah, mentioning sort of some of the aspects there of the pain and the physical achievement, but there's also so many things of the friendships gained. A few people we traveled with, that we didn't really know each other before, but we're definitely friends for life, because you've shared camp life, you've shared looking at each other's feet on a daily basis, to make sure that people are not doing something stupid and going out with a blister or a swollen ankle or whatever. I stood outside the medic's tent talking to the race director and heard the words Shane, amputation. You just kind of say, oh crap, what's that? It's these things that are just happening around you, and you're there as a group, and you get to know other people, and just so much bigger than just running 380 kilometers.
And these kind of events, like you said, that's a really good point. Like the social aspects of it, and it's just a leveler. It doesn't care if you're a postman or if you're the president of a company. It doesn't matter. It's just a total leveler. And I found, with a running community, everybody's just so supportive of just wanting to see people do better for themselves, and it's just a great social group to be involved with. And like you say, these events, you bump into people. I would never have met you if it wasn't for Sandnes. I've met a couple of others from that race. Met a couple of people in Hergesund, and we've made a little ultra running. There's no ultra running club in Hergesund, so we've made a little ultra running group. I think there's 13 of us in the little Facebook group, and we're going to make a little ultra run in, I say 50k ultra up in the trails here. We're going to do that soon, but if you don't start there, you won't start anywhere. So you've got to start somewhere, type of thing. So it's just a great leveler for people to, like you say, to meet people, socialize, and then when you get through it and you're having a beer afterwards and you're sort of like decompressing it and telling the stories of it and, you know, sharing this, something that's so trivial, like to other people, but it's a massive thing. Like if you say, oh, I sprained my ankle on the first day and then I was in a war zone for 5 days with this ankle. Nobody, I have this saying that I say to my wife, I say, nobody cares, if you know what I mean. And it's like when people say I'm tired in the morning, nobody cares that you're tired. You know, if you really think about it, nobody gives a shit that you're tired, mate. But it's like you've kind of lived in that for 5 days or for however long the race is. And it meant so much to you in that moment and everybody's supporting you, but everyone's in their own little world with their own little things that they went through. And yeah.
It's so true. There's so much to take away from it, and there's so much, as you say, that is in that bubble. And God, I lived in the bubble for almost a week and a half. You know, because even though you know the race was only 6 days, you know, we travelled together as a three. We spent a few days in Manchester. You know, stocking up on meat at Ben Brazil. You know, getting as much meat served to us as possible there before moving on. Coming down to the kit check, going through all of that. You know, awe-inspiring bit of, you know, meeting the people, going through the strict nature, failed kit check. You know, that was like a moment where it's just like, you're going to stop me from running because I don't have the right waterproof trousers, you know, but then, you know, buying some other ones and carrying them with me the whole week and never using them. You know, you're in this bubble for so long. And even afterwards, we were in a bubble, you know, where it's just like, you know, we didn't know how to deal with it. We didn't know how to, you know, to talk about it or anything. But then you come back and you go to work and people are saying, well, what was it like? Or, you know, talking in a way to you now, you know, well, what, you know, what is it about it? It's just, I want so many aspects. I want to, you know, grab this from there and there, but do you get it? You know, yeah. And I think you get it way more than other people because you've been through that moment. I mean, if I think back to when I met you, you know, at Sandnes, and I think you said something that you were just like, oh yeah, well, you do it in 13 or 14 hours or something. I was like, yeah. Good luck.
But that was total rookiness. Yeah. And that was me because I was when I was doing, like I said before, when I was doing my kind of 15, 20K, 25K maximums, that was the pace I was going at. So I was kind of like thinking, and in Sandnes particularly, I just did not have a clue about the terrain. I had no idea what that terrain was going to be. And that's my fault. I should have, I did actually do a recce, but that day turned into a bit of a disaster. I had to shoot home and I didn't do it properly. So that's a really important point, actually, generally, to look at the terrain. I mean, I've done Crib Goch as a hike, and to think of doing that in an ultra run is just next level, because that is some gnarly shit up there on Crib Goch with bad weather and rain. So kudos.
I was actually pretty glad that we had, you know, sort of cloud cover underneath, because, you know, I'm not great with heights in the first place. And I think if it was a nice day, you know, with a breeze, then I would have been even more scared. But, you know, you couldn't see down. But yeah, no, I take it. But I mean, back to, you know, what you were saying there, I don't think you would necessarily be as prepared for next year if you hadn't gone through what you've gone through now. You went into it, you know, a little bit, you know, what was it? You know, what behind the ears? Yeah.
Wet behind the ears.
Wet behind the ears, and but actually, you know, it's lit a kind of enthusiasm and, you know, an urge to learn more, you know, to look at all the finer details and see how can I get that 1% better in all of these areas that'll actually make this experience to do 100 miles in the same terrain, God help you, you know, even more enjoyable, you know, or actually enjoyable rather than just a challenge. And I think when you come to do that next year, that it'll be an amazing experience. And I wouldn't put it past you that the Dragon's Back is therefore something that you should look at for 2026 or whatever.
Yeah, that's kind of realistically what I'm sort of looking at. My heart is kind of set on Marathon des Sables, but that's a bit next level. Hopefully that I win the Euro lottery before now and then, and maybe that can help me. But
I think to talk to Stephen Holvik about that, won't you?
Yeah, I think he's doing that one, so I will. Yeah. I'll definitely speak to him about that. But I think it's also, I kind of go into things with a mentality of I only really need to know 10 or 20% of anything I go into. The rest, I kind of trust myself to be able to figure it out. Now, with the ultra marathon, was I ever going to do it in that time? No, absolutely no. After an hour, I realised that this was... In fact, I remember on the hour mark, I went, throw that fucking goal in the ocean, Steve, because that's not going to happen. Now we're in survival mode. And that's kind of how I sort of think of things. I'm like, we're just in survival mode now. So the only thing now is finishing before 1 p.m. on Sunday or whatever it is. But I think I kind of learned to go into everything. I only need to know 10 or 20%. The rest, I'm going to be able to figure it out. And I always think if you try and figure everything out, make everything perfect, it just doesn't work out. It's almost like a waste of energy. Because if you go into it with a perfect plan, and like you say, you sprain your ankle after 1 minute, or it starts pissing down rain, or you've misjudged something and you pull a hamstring, or your shoes that you think were not going to rub you start rubbing you after 10 hours, everything goes out of the window anyway at that point. So I kind of think as long as I know 10 or 20%, and I'm physically capable, and I'm not going to break down physically, the rest I can work it out, And I think half the challenge, the most enjoyment for me, is working it out when I'm doing it, and like something like the Dragon's Back. I'm guessing you probably like got in every day and you were like, right, okay, going through what do I need to sort out for tomorrow? How do I need to get organised? What did I learn today? What worked? What didn't work? So you were probably kind of figuring things out on the cuff anyway.
I think what's key there, I mean, I would say I prefer to know 40% to 50%. But you won't use all the 40 to 50%, if you know what I'm saying. Or or I want to know maybe 60 to 70%, but I won't use all of that. I might use 20%, but it's the fact of actually having those things and then being adaptable. So yeah, as you say, on day one, when the ankle went, it was like, okay, reset. Where am I now? Then I can chuck all that, the stuff that I planned for the rest of the day, because that's not going to happen anymore. But what's important now? The important thing is actually I want to enjoy this. So put a smile on your face, put a paracetamol in your mouth, and get your poles out and get on with it. That's effectively, what happened. And then, as I say, when I got into camp, it was just, all right, 13 hours, 10 minutes. I've still got 2 hours. 2 hours, 50 minutes to cut off. I've got 50 minutes before the sun goes down, so I can still get all my stuff done in daylight. I've got, people who are supportive around me. How can I draw from them? Have they done anything? Have they, where can they tell me where the stream is to go and wash, or what's nice at to get for food, up at the mess tent, things like that actually, just give you an advantage. How can I use them rather than just using myself? So you kind of go in there and adapt to what you've got in front of you.
How did you find the cut-off times? Was it something that was in the back of your mind as pressure, a little bit of pressure, and were you 100% sure you'd get there, or was it something that was in the back of your head just niggling away? I looked at the cut-off times, and when I was looking at my sort of expectations and I was looking at the cut-off times, I was like, realistically, I think I'd be chasing them every day, and they'd be in the back of my mind. Where I'm at as a runner, I was like, I think I'd be on the last second of these every day, and do I want to go for that where I am now, kind of thing?
I didn't know, to be quite honest, with you. I didn't know how they would be or anything like that, and I was never less. Was it more or less? I never had more than a problem of 2 hours against the cutoff time. I went out early every day to make sure that I didn't have that as a problem, because you never knew what would happen. So I was always out between 6 and 6:15 in the morning because of that. But
so it's a cutoff time in the night. It's not a duration of the day.
No, if you come under 9 hours on any of the stages, then you will be told to start 2 hours later, because they don't think that you're going to have a problem with the cutoff. But the cutoff time is still exactly the same for that person as it is for the person that starts at 6 a.m. But realistically, it's not going to be a problem. But if you are a slow person and you can't get your crap together in the morning, and you need from 6 a.m. but you don't get out until 7:15, you're going to have a problem. That's the reality of it. We were up at 4:30 every day. I was stood in the queue for food at 10 to 5, finished eating at 20 past 5, washed up and then packing my stuff down. Then you had to go deliver your bag in, have it weighed again to make sure that you weren't over the 2.5 kilos for the drop bag. You had a kit check, to make sure that you've got a couple of items that you should have out on the hill. All this you had to get into maybe an hour and a half if you wanted to start at 6. So there's lots of things that were, put there, all in the dark, of course, under head torch. Lots of things that had to go right. And so I didn't have a problem with cutoff times, although if I think back 9 months, I sat there watching Dragon's Back videos and watching people miss it by 3 seconds and thinking, if that's me, I'm going to kill, that's an awful reality. Yeah. So, luckily I didn't land myself in any situation like that. And I don't think you would either, to be honest with you.
No, I like all the aspects of getting your shit together and being organised and all the logistics afterwards and then restarting. So I kind of like the challenge of that. This year's way too soon for me in terms of like a multi-day race, but that's one of my targets for possibly the autumn of 2025, possibly, if not 2026. But we'll see how it goes. I'll get Sandnes out of the way first, and then I'm thinking of another ultra, maybe 2 months, a month, or probably 2 months I need after that, and then I will do another one. Not sure where yet. There's a few, and then we'll see. I don't think I need to do more than next year. I don't think I'm going to play rugby next year, so that's one. Because I kind of have a problem with when I'm playing rugby in the season, it's hard to be running 70k a week, then play a game on a Saturday. And once you get 40 plus and you're playing rugby, when you get hit, you stay hit for about 3 weeks. You don't recover like in your 20s when you just get on with it the next day. When I'm getting hit now, you stay hit, and it's about 3 weeks before part of your body comes back to life. So I think it will be my last season, I think, playing, and then I can focus and, I don't have to take a month or two where my training's all messed up. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But what plans have you got next then? What's coming next for you?
Do you know what? There's nothing at the moment on the schedule apart from September next year, where I'm doing the race across Scotland. So that is now we're going back to miles, but 235 mile non-stop across Scotland.
Is that what it's called, the race across Scotland?
Yeah, so that's GB Ultras that arrange it. Okay. And the reason for that is the plan originally was to do Oslo Bergen next year. However, didn't really think about when it was happening, and two of my kids had birthdays in that period, and I received, should we say that it was quite clear that I should be home, or at least on holiday for that time, not off running.
yeah, that makes sense. That happens to the best of us. But yeah, so
Race Across Scotland is it kind of completes my trio as well. So in 2023 I ran across England, 2024 across Wales, and now do across Scotland as well. So if I can do that, I'll be happy and tick off the UK.
The Spine race is one I've looked at as well. The north south, and then there's the full one. That looks a good project for in a couple of years, so I'll certainly look at that. But Mark, I appreciate your time, mate. It's been great talking to you. Congrats on the race, and good luck for everything in the future.
Fantastic, awesome talking to you and catching up on what's happening in your life as well at the moment. So good luck with that as well, you too.
Thanks, mate. I'll talk to you soon.